Podcast. Welcome into another episode of the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog and the Underdog Fantasy family. And go head on over to Underdog right now. Use promo code Triple, and you'll get a deposit match up to $100 when using that code. Great for fantasy football drafts underway right now as we head into August. So make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy and get those drafts going today. Back at you guys tonight. We got a trade deadline special here for the Triple Play Pod tonight. We've got Marty Party, we've got Lil Cheesecake, and then we got Vinny down on the farm, our prospect guru here, to help us break down all these prospects changing hands, changing teams. But first, I got to ask, Vinny, man, I know you were on last week, but it's been a while since I've been on the pod with you. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. This week has been an absolute just jumble of starting at like 7 a.m. every day. It's like refresh Twitter. Oh, so-and-so's traded. And today was kind of lackluster compared to it, but wow, a lot of changing hands of prospects.
There was a lot. We were waiting for that big name to drop. It never did, unless you count Jack Flaherty as that big name. I guess kind of he was the top dog to be traded today. LC, I know you were keeping up with all the moves. How do you feel like your Cubs did? Were you satisfied with bringing in Isaac Paredes as the main cornerstone now of your franchise, losing Mark Leiter? There were some changes made for your Cubs here.
Yeah, I think the Leiter deal was interesting. We got a couple of young guys from the Yankees. I'm anxious to hear Vinny's thoughts on our haul. It stinks to give up Leiter. I think Pearson is an okay replacement, but he hasn't been pitching that well this year. I think Paredes is an upgrade right now over Morel, straight up. I hate giving up Hunter Biggie for in that deal as well. I would have rather done straight up Morel for Paredes, but I think we're kind of holding our chips with Bellinger coming back, so we didn't really sell, we didn't really buy, but we're still in it, but we didn't really do much of an upgrade. Although I like Paredes over Morel this season.
Mari, we'll get into what your Detroit Tigers did, but for right now, Scooby Snacks is still a Detroit Tiger. I'm curious what their asking price must have been, considering what the Marlins got for Trevor Rogers. I must have imagined the Tigers asking for every prospect in the Orioles system.
Jackson Holiday. That would have been, I think that's the only way they would have done it. I don't think.
You think Jackson Holiday
and more.
And like another high-end
It seems
prospect?
So with kind of what they gave the Marlins. I mean, that was, most people didn't expect that. Now, I'm not going to rush to say, like a lot of people on Twitter, that, they were fleeced, all this stuff. We don't know. It's going to take a couple of years to shake out. We're not going to do it yet. But, it was, we won't get into the Flaherty thing. But, it's been a crazy day. Absolutely crazy. It's been awesome.
Well, without further ado, let's dive in here. I think we have to talk about the Trevor Rogers deal first, because you saw a lot of trades happening today. That was the one that I saw and my jaw dropped. I know there was the Kikuchi trade the other day that people did the same as well, but for Trevor Rogers' track record, for what he's been the last few seasons, it's utterly, I think everybody knew, at least a lot of Orioles people knew Connor Norby most likely was going to be moved in a deal. But him and Stowers for Trevor Rogers, who, besides his rookie season, has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball, a fastball that's lost 2 miles per hour velocity from what it used to have. They must think that there's something in there that they can fix to get him back to the guy that they looked like one of the best young promising arms in the game when he first came up. Vinny, when you saw this trade go down, what went through your mind?
It felt like they're buying controllable assets. So, I can't think. Burns is a free agent this year. Who knows if they're going to spend the money to keep him with them. It was kind of shocking because they just went out and got Eflin a few days ago. And I thought that was going to be their only piece. But it almost looks like now they're starting to, while also buying pieces for now. They're buying pieces for next year, the year after that, year after that. Like, he's a project right now. He's had, very differing success with the Marlins right now, but put him in Baltimore with a new pitching organization, that could be something very interesting. Like, John Means is down and another handful of guys, Tommy John, they probably won't come up or come back until late next year, maybe early 2026.
Kyle Bradish too.
Yeah, Bradish, like, you fixed a really, really big need because, their pitching prospects, they have like McDermott, Povich has been up and down, but he hasn't really clicked yet. So to get like an established guy that's used to the majors, and it was fairly cheap considering some of these hauls for other guys like Norby and Stowers. That's a cheap haul for what I think it's 2 or 3 years of Rogers.
So you think that wasn't an overpay that they gave up Stowers and Norby for him, and for context, I kind of was listening to that Rogers has been bad. This is a courtesy of Ryan Bloomfield. He put this out today. Trevor Rogers since 2022. This is all starting pitchers, minimum of 200 innings pitched. A 149 whip, 158th out of 163 qualifying starters. A 4.92 ERA. That's 145th out of 163 qualifying starters. An 11% K to walk ratio. That's 129th of 163 qualified starters. So he's been bad. You don't think that, considering the results that he had on the field, that this was not an overpay in the slightest?
No, we've seen the absolute ceiling you can get out of Rogers in 2021. Like, the kid that pitched 25 games had a sub-3 ERA with, almost 160 strikeouts. Like, the upside is there. It's really hard to trust Miami with pitching now. Like, it's injuries, it's inconsistencies. Like, we're seeing this over and over again. Like, Jesus Luzardo was good for like the first year, 2 years he was there. Injuries, inconsistencies. So I'm like, Baltimore must see something really fixable in him to get the type of value out of him. And if you even get half of what he was in 2021, like, that's still a solid number 3-4 starter, especially a controllable lefty that's young. And Connor Norby, there's no room for him up in Baltimore. So, you would have to move off of Westberg. You'd have to move off of Holiday. You would have to move off of, something like Henderson. So you're trading assets that you have a deep stash of. Like, Stowers wasn't probably going to see the majors either, especially with Kjerstad and Kauser and Cedric Mullins. So you're trading easy to move pieces to get something that could really, really help you.
I guess, like anything, time will tell to see how that happens. I saw one person on Twitter compare it to the worst trade since Chris Archer to the Pirates or to the Rays deal, or Pirates deal, whatever, not too long ago. So we will see how that takes out for sure.
I just want to add that what Trevor Rogers has been so unhealthy for the last 2-3 years. We have no idea what he is if he can stay healthy for 6 months. Even last year, we go to his expected ERA, it's somewhere around 3.95, which isn't great. But from like, when you think about like where he's at, I think most people think it was worse than that. So if he can stay healthy and he can get back to throwing, 2-3 miles an hour harder consistently, because that's his velocity. It's all tied to that. And his velocity is down because he's been injured for so long. So Baltimore's smart. I'd like to move.
I like to look at what Baltimore has done as a whole in this trade deadline, because they brought in 2 starters, they brought in 2 relievers, and they brought in Eloy Jimenez. It was an interesting trade deadline. They got a couple of reliever trades with the Phillies, bringing in Sir Anthony Dominguez and Gregory Soto today, Eflin and Rogers, and Jimenez. Jimenez has had some power trouble in Chicago recently. I think Baltimore's going to be tough for him. But I think this is an interesting deadline for them. The only really major league player they gave up was Austin Hayes.
He just homered today
for the Phillies.
Yeah, 3-run homer today.
I think he's a good pickup in all your leagues if he's available. Just as a spec, I'd be specking Austin Hayes definitely. But I mean they added bullpen pieces, and they added starting pitching pieces. And Eloy, I mean, who knows what he's going to do in that lineup? He could be very good, but he could tweak his quad on Tuesday, next Tuesday, so.
I had a random like daydream that he's going to turn into the Nelson Cruz that went to the Orioles a few years ago and reignited his career over there. I guess, it's kind of a similar type of profile, like a power hitter. But I think it's a long shot at this point, but the Orioles didn't give up much to get him. So an interesting kind of buy low for them just to see what they could maybe get out of him there.
Last thing on the Orioles, Orioles to call up Jackson Holiday was announced about 10, 15 minutes ago. So
I think prepare
it's coming,
for the
baby.
Yeah, that scared everyone today because it was reported earlier during the deadline that he was scratched from AAA. So it started all the, Tariq Skubal's coming to Baltimore.
Eddie says, I'm getting a wordy that Jackson Jobe isn't coming up until September at this point. Very frustrating. Vinny, do you think that's the case?
He might not even come up at all this year. There's really no need to bring up Jackson Jobe. I think we talked about this last week.
We did.
Marty.
We talked about it last week. Yeah, Jason Beck, the beat writer for the Detroit Tigers, said as of right now, Jackson Jobe is not coming up. There's no plans to bring him up. But
wouldn't they? I mean, if you bring him up in September, he can keep the rookie eligibility and you give him the chance to get taste of the major leagues. I don't see why they wouldn't do that, right? And especially with
makes sense.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah,
it could.
Yeah, you also start his clock though, and he's this is like his first year off of the injury he had. I wouldn't test him too much. If I were to put money on a guy potentially coming up, I think it's Ty Madden. He's had a rough time at AAA this year, but you never know. He could come up. Like Reese Olson had a horrible AAA last year, and look at the kind of success he's having this year. Mm-hmm. Like they have a plethora of arms that they could easily just plug and play. Like another one, Wilmer Flores, or like there's many of them. Brant Herter. They probably have to be added to the 40-man, but now with Flaherty gone, there's room. So
I would think they would. I was gonna say, I think they would be more likely to push him up to pitch if they had any, if they wanted to win at all. And as we can tell by the trade deadline, they don't care. They're not trying to make a playoff run.
Well, Marty's not allowed to answer this question. Between the three of us, can we name Detroit's starting rotation right now? With Jack Flaherty gone, with Reese Olson on the IL. Can we name Can we name their starting five? Because we have obviously Tariq Skubal number one.
I think Manning's going to be part of the rotation. I think you put Kenta Maeda in there, and I don't know.
Alex Fado, maybe.
Faedo's been coming in like 2-3 inning spurts, and he's not doing very well. So,
Brisky,
Montero, he's been in the rotation for the last few weeks.
Casey Mize also isn't he like?
He's injured now.
I almost need to look up their depth chart really quick.
It's a mess over there once you get past Skubal. That's all.
That's why I was thinking
all
maybe
that needs
like
to be highlighted.
Let's see. So according to, I'm going to check MLB.com's depth chart for them. Their starting rotation is Tariq Skubal. It's Keider Montero. And the other two they have in their rotation is Casey Mize, who's on the 60-day IL, and Reese Olson on the 15-day IL. That's the only people they list in their rotation.
They got to bring up Manning. He's got to be the first guy brought up.
In their bullpen, Fado, Maeda, Brisky, Tyler Holton. He's been starting for them a little bit, hasn't he?
In small spurts. I don't think he... maybe. Let me see.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's as bad a rotation as I've ever seen outside of Tariq Skubal.
Yeah.
He has 3 starts right now. Talking about Tyler Horton.
Yeah, if you have a player playing Detroit the rest of the season, you start them. But unless it's Tariq Skubal.
Yeah.
So,
especially Detroit's on the road because that park obviously is annoying. But and then Eddie says they should put Kobe Mayo on suicide watch, seeing that all of his Norfolk teammates are now in the majors now.
Oh, Kobe Mayo.
Love you, Eddie. That's a good.
I think it's good for Kobe Mayo. He gets to go to the Marlins, and it's just he's probably going to start.
You think
That's
it'll probably
right.
Connor
Connor
Norby?
Norby.
Or sorry, yeah, that's what I meant to say. Sorry, kind of Norby, yeah.
Yeah, for Norby, it's going to be good. And Stowers, I read too, is also going to start there too. They're both
Yeah.
going to be up with the
Yeah.
team. The Marlins like had as much movement at a trade deadline as I've ever seen. Like I think I saw Craig Mish tweet out. He's like, I'm ready to grab my glove at any moment because we nobody else to hit. Yeah, I mean, they got crazy amount of prospects. They got a good young team building over there. They're doing
I feel like we've
right.
been saying that about that team for the last 10, 15 years. The problem with that organization is once those players do get good, then they're just going to train them again. And they're just going to keep doing this over and over again. But shout out to them because they've won 2 championships in the last 30 years. Detroit Tigers can't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they also targeted a lot of guys that can play now. And it was more focused towards next year because you're getting Luzardo back healthy. You're getting Alcantara back healthy. You know, it was a brace for Perez, so maybe he doesn't come up before July, but you're going to have Max Meyer also. Like, they have a lot of pieces where they could be a very interesting team next year. Adam Mazer can slot in, Snelling can slot in. Like, they completely rebuilt their organization over the span of 5 days, which is absurd.
How many players did they end up trading?
I have them at trading. Sorry, I counted it. They traded AJ Puck, Jazz Chisholm, Trevor Rogers, Tanner Scott, Brian Hoeing, JT Charjois, Huascar Brazaban, and Brian De La Cruz. I got 8. I think they were all on the roster, major league roster too.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move then from that. Let's talk about the other bigger trade that happened today. We'll stay with Detroit. Jack Flaherty is gone from Detroit to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Let's talk about his value going to the Dodgers, what we expect of him rest of season. And then, Vinny, if you have on the 2 prospects that came back to the Tigers, if there's any of them that you feel strongly about or that worth discussing, we can definitely get to that. But first, from the major league side, LC, Jack Flaherty, sub-3 ERA, has pitched as good as he did when he was 4th in NL Cy Young voting. I think it was back in 2019. I think that was the year that he finished where he had like 16 starts of a sub-1 ERA. Can you explain where you think Jack Flaherty's value rest of season is in terms of, is he a top 20 starting pitcher, top 30? Where do you value him?
I have him as a top 20 right now. And I continue to have him that. I think his value at least maintains and his win probability goes up. So his value probably goes up just because of that. I don't see any reason why he would pitch differently with the Dodgers. And, I think his first start's going to be Friday this week. So I'm excited for that to see how he pitches. The only news for fantasy that's relevant is in because he changed leagues. If you're in an NL only and you got the hammer, time to bring it out because he's the biggest pickup in your NL only league. So that's the only real analysis on him because he's owned everywhere. I think he's going to maintain his performance levels.
So I will say that. So obviously pitching for Detroit. Where did it go? I was trying to look at his expected home runs, but for some reason I'm not seeing it. Why is it not popping up?
Well, while you look that up, I just want to shout out Jack Flaherty because he has a 2.95 ERA and a 2.95 xERA. I mean, that's just fun.
Has anybody determined what the biggest difference with him has been this year?
Man,
I know health
he's
is
not
a big
on
deal.
the Cardinals. He has an organization that believes in him. He's healthy. I mean, he has a 32% strikeout percentage to a 4.6 walk percentage. I mean, we've never even seen a Jack Flaherty this good. And for him, for the rest of the season, he's going back home. He's a Harvard Westlake kid. He's an LA kid. First thing he did was he took he posted on Instagram a picture of him in his Dodger hat growing up. So he just gets to go home now, sleep at home. Jack Flaherty's living the dream, man.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, Jack Flaherty, I think we're all agreeing rest of season, definitely a great ad there for the Dodgers. Vinny, what about the prospects going back to Detroit? Any of note to any dynasty players?
I think there's one for redraft right now that is very interesting, which I wonder what they do, and then one for dynasty he's a very well-known name, but I'm pretty bullish on him. But the return was Trey Sweeney, infielder, and Theron Lorenzo, a catcher / first baseman. Sweeney is really interesting. He is in AAA. He has been he's played 3 different positions this year. He has played shortstop, third base, and DH. He's about ready as ready could be to have his debut. I wonder if we see him added to the 40-man right away, or we're going to have to wait for next year. But he was on a downward spiral with the Yankees going into this year. The Dodgers got him. He had a crazy spring training this year. Had an okay AAA with the Dodgers. He's more power over contact right now, but he's a solid defender no matter where he plays. Like, you have Javier Baez right now. He could potentially come for Baez's job depending on how aggressive they want to get, or he could slot in at third base. He's really interesting to watch. And then Theron Lorenzo, he's right now a catcher, but he's not going to stick behind the plate. He has a good arm, but his receiving and just agility in general is very concerning. He probably slots better at first base. It's a slugger bat. It's all extra base hits, home runs, and then absolutely brutal Ks. Little to no walks and no steals. So, you got to take that with a grain of salt, how you want to approach that. And Detroit's track record with those type of talents have been very spotty of the past couple of years. But all in all, that's a pretty decent haul. Comparing to all the relief pitchers today, it was pretty lackluster, but it's still a solid haul for Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, again, that was probably the biggest move of the day. Let's talk about a couple other moves here. Red Sox got Luis Garcia.
As the resident Tigers fan, I have a couple things I would like to add. For Lorenzo, I mean, his walk percentage has been pretty good throughout the minor leagues. 16.5, 12.3, 16.7, and 15.6. So I do like his eye. I think Vinny's right on with the contact and the approach. It's going to be an all or nothing, kind of a swing there. And the Detroit Tigers don't have good history with that. But what he's like the Dodgers number 3rd rated prospect, I think, on Baseball America. I saw. I'll take that. And I think with Trey Sweeney, 24-year-old lefty shortstop, he could, like Vinny said, he could play maybe later this year. I think that a lot of people thought the Detroit Tigers didn't get a lot for Jack Flaherty. We're talking about 2 months of Jack Flaherty, right? And we were able to get someone potentially with some upside. Lorenzo's a switch hitter too, so I mean that could possibly help him out at first base. So I don't hate the haul. I think it was fine.
I think people forget that when it's a rental player where they're not signed beyond the rest of the season, that the package going back is significantly going to be less, which is the case with Jack Flaherty, which is why, again, someone like Trevor Rogers, Kikuchi, that have years of control will net more players because the team has a couple years before they have to pay them. So makes sense with that. Let's talk about the Angels for a second, because their closing situation has changed dramatically. Carlos Estevez going to the Phillies. Then they also had Luis Garcia go to the Boston Red Sox, which means Ben Joyce looks to be the closer now for the Angels. Obviously, if you need saves and you're in a daily lineups league, he should be someone that's picked up for speculative. But if you're in a weekly league where you have to spend some fab on him, what are your guys' thoughts about Ben Joyce being worth spending a lot of fab on this coming Sunday? Is he worth it, or are you kind of sitting on the sidelines? I do believe he has like a 15-inning scoreless streak going as of right now. Obviously throws over 100 miles an hour. Doesn't get as many strikeouts as you would think throwing that hard, which looks like Elsie, that's where he was alluding to go to.
No, I mean, I love Ben Joyce. The Angels stink though, and that's my biggest problem with them, is that they're the team that I stream against the most. They're the worst hitting, one of the worst hitting teams in baseball. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of save chances. I think he's the guy. But like there's not new closers on good teams right now. So yeah, go spend some money. But I think there's a couple other guys like possibly like John Brebbia with the White Sox, although the White Sox.
I think he just blew a save already to Bobby Wood. He gave up a grand slam to him yesterday.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows? Joyce, I think if he has a job, he's going to hold down the saves, but he's not going to get a lot of save opportunities. Maybe, 10 more saves this year, 12 maybe.
Okay, leave it there. Dylan Carlson, the name that people haven't heard much of this year. He's going to the Rays. Any interest in that? Probably a platoon player, not much. 5 outfielder league. Are you taking a shot on him?
Yeah. I mean, the Rays sold, and so Carlson has a chance to get a spot in their lineup. I like ex-Cardinals outfielders as producers in their new roles, and I like the Rays picking up guys to produce. I might spec add him if I need an outfielder, but I mean, I want to see if they're going to play him. They have a lot of kind of meh outfielders.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's Jose Siri at center, Richie Palacios left, right field Josh Lowe, a struggling Josh Lowe. I mean, he's been brutal all year. And now Christopher Morel moves into the DH for most days. I think I'm not going to pick him up anywhere, but I would say put a little click the eye, so watch him.
Yeah, I think watch him for sure. I mean, they picked him up. He's going to be on the roster. I think he could start getting everyday at bats.
He would play over Johnny DeLuca, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
I would assume.
I would bet he even plays over. Who's the other one? Palacios, also.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Guardians acquired Alex Cobb today. Cleveland needing the pitching for the stretch run here, as they have, I believe, as of today, they have the best record in the American League. I have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure they do. Obviously, Tristan McKenzie has been hurt, has not been what we thought he could be this year. Tanner Bybee, our guy, has looked pretty good. And they've lost Shane Bieber this year. They have Logan Allen that has stepped in there, and he's struggled. Ben Lively, the NRFI god, has been good in the first inning, but kind of meh for most of I would say the season, kind of average. And then Carlos Carrasco has been a disaster with a near 6 ERA. Gavin Williams looking like the real deal, had 5 innings, scoreless innings, 8 strikeouts today. So what do we think about Alex Cobb? Is he somebody that you think is going to be worth an ad over in Cleveland? He's been a very hot and cold pitcher throughout his career. He had that velocity spike, which seemed like it was a big deal to have his success, but he's coming back off the injured list. So what are we thoughts about Alex Cobb here? I think go ahead.
If Cleveland is targeting you, even with you having an injury, there's something they really like about his arsenal, or there's something that they know that they could fix to make him a very good starter. It's very interesting because they were connected with a lot of different arms, and it seems that they just totally went away from just spending a lot for him. And they found like the cheapest, most effective way to do it and go get Cobb. So there might be smoke where there's fire with Cobb. So I would definitely be watching at least his first start for sure. But I would even, if you have a deep bench, I would definitely stash him.
I think that's worthy of it. I think a lot of people are going to wait for that first start. And then if he has a great first start, then people are going to flock to the waiver wire. So if you believe in Alex Cobb and you have the roster space, maybe grab him, put him on your bench, see how he does, and then wait before everything goes. Or again, like if you're in fab leagues, like he might cost a little bit less. Obviously, if you're on FBC, you can't do it yet, but he might cost a little bit less than then if he goes out there and shoves in his first start. But staying with the Guardians, Lane Thomas was also acquired by the Guardians. Left-hander Alex Clemmie is going back along with Jose Tena and Rafael Ramirez. Lane Thomas was a cornerstone stud for the Nationals, one of many Cardinals that go to the Nationals and kind of resurrect their career. But he's been one of their solid players ever since he's been over there over the last few seasons. I saw today he was hitting number 2 in the lineup, went 1 for 4. Lane Thomas, rest of season, I want to say I feel like the value is probably similar to what it was in Washington. Maybe he'll get some more runs, but he was hitting atop the lineup in Washington as well. So like outside of the runs, I don't see too much changing. What do you guys think with Lane Thomas?
I love it for Lane Thomas. As a Lane Thomas truther for years, that's great. Stephen Kwan in front of him, Jose Ramirez behind him, playing in Cleveland, which is it's a good part for right-handers. It's even better for lefties, but it's pretty good for right-handers. I mean, the Guardians have the best offense in baseball, the second best offense in baseball as of this year. So I mean, yeah, it's a huge upgrade. We just don't think about the Guardians too often. I think it's overlooked.
And Vinny, on the flip side of the coin, Dylan Cruz maybe coming up soon for Washington.
I don't know. That one's really interesting. He's had a very mediocre. I don't want to say mediocre. He's had an okay year. He's shown some signs of struggle so far at AAA. I don't know if they would rush him though right away, especially with James Wood up. Like it's possible. I'm surprised it hasn't. If it was going to happen, I'm surprised it hasn't been announced already, unless I've missed it. But man, it does open. It opens the door for some really big, like really interesting possibilities, because they could now go after someone in free agency. They could, it could be Dylan Cruz's spot for the rest of this year. But the Guardians gave up a pretty decent haul to get Lane Thomas. I will say that. Like,
yeah, talk about the prospects you like there.
Alex Clemmie is by far massive upside. 19-year-old lefty from Rhode Island. Really bad walk problem, but has an absurd K9 right now. It's either 14 or 15. I haven't checked in a minute, but has ace type of stuff if he can get the walks under control. Jose Tena is also really interesting. He's right there knocking on the door in AAA. He's a contact-oriented infielder that you can plug and play in the middle infield. And Rafael Ramirez Jr. is another guy that's having a pretty good year that you might want to start keeping an eye on in Dynasty, because if there's one thing the Nationals are lacking right now, it's infield prospects. Like their best two are Brady House and Yurendi Morales, and then Caden Wallace they just got last week. Like he might be someone you want to keep an eye on.
All right, I like it. Let's move on here. And there's a big deal that did happen the other day with the Dodgers, the Cardinals, and the White Sox. And it's not Garrett Crochet who's staying with the White Sox. Miguel Vargas to the White Sox, headlining a package of prospects there. We also had Tommy Edman go to the Dodgers. And then we had, who am I forgetting went to the Cardinals here?
Eric Fetty.
Eric Fetty, yeah.
Fetty, thank you. Yeah, thank
Eric
you.
Fetty,
Eric
Tommy
Fetty,
Pham.
the biggest piece to Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham to the Cardinals. Who won this trade? And who was the loser of this trade?
I would say that the winner is St. Louis, because they gave up pretty much nothing. And Tommy Pham just hit a grand slam in the past 5 minutes. Yeah, they walked away with giving up a depth minor league arm and Tommy Edman for Eric Fetty and Tommy Pham, who everyone believed Eric Fetty was a top 3 arm at this deadline. I mean, the haul that they got from the Dodgers is okay, but man, they gave up Kopech also to
Yep.
the Dodgers, and it was almost the Dodgers basically paid for the Cardinals half of the deal.
Yep.
It was, I would say personally, it's lacking a big piece. There should probably be at least one more big piece in there to make it at least a 60% trade. But analyzing it, the White Sox really must believe in Miguel Vargas. You know, they've had injuries at that position for God knows how long now. You can't trust Moncada. They're having trouble developing a guy that can stick in the infield over there. And we've seen signs of Miguel Vargas, the type of upside he has. So maybe a change of scenery really sparks a revamped Miguel Vargas. The two prospects they got were really interesting in Jarrell Perez and Alexander Albertus. Jarrell Perez was their future game representative this year. Low A second baseman, good hit tool, good feel for power, some K concerns. Albertus, though, has made waves of late. While Bobby Miller was rehabbing, he was absolutely destroying anything thrown by him at him. Like, he had a couple home runs against him. He had a couple extra base hits. He is a guy to really, really watch. Dynasty-wise, it's an ad for him right now because I don't know. He's probably going to be sent straight to low A, I would guess, because he was in the complex. But with the kind of helium he has right now from just the complex, you really want to start stashing him.
Yeah,
Right.
I wonder, because the White Sox traded 3 of their trade pieces in one deal here, and you know, it sounds like they didn't get a terrible. I think Vargas is a spec pickup right now in all of your 12 and 15s if he's available.
He's going to play, which is the
Yeah,
big thing.
he's going to play, and he's probably going to hit 4th or 5th in the lineup. So he's in a decent lineup position. So I think he's a spec pickup. But I wonder if trading 3 of your pieces in one deal yields less in return than trying to piecemeal it out one in 3 different trades. So like I wasn't sure about this haul back. I don't know what I thought their Eloy Jimenez deal also, they got a decent relief pitcher prospect, but you know, it wasn't like a completely inspiring White Sox trade deadline for trying to, like, you know, get Hall for their trade pieces. It didn't seem.
Yeah, if we're talking from a straight value point, their best trade of value was probably Tanner Banks to the Phillies for William Bergolla. Bergola's having a down year with the bat, but we've seen a track record of him having success. It's easily a 55-60 glove with an arm. Like, if we're talking about sturdy just structure for future performance of tools of a minor leaguer, that is exactly what you build on. And it helps the organizational need of these infield prospects that they want to kind of fast track and start building towards for the next 2-3 years. So that was a spectacular trade. And the Eloy trade was pretty much a money dump. Will they use that money in the offseason? We will see. We know how Reinsdorf is, but it was really interesting. I don't know if that was what they were planning to do or they just got as much as they could, but that'll be something I want to listen for the next couple of days from just talk outside of the organization.
Let's go back to the Marlins for a second. Eddie asks, who's going to be the closer rest of season? Who do you guys think? I'm always an Anthony Bender guy. I don't know if he'll actually will be the guy, but he's just been one of the guys I like a lot. You know, is it Nardi? Who do you guys think it is? Are they going to even have enough games to save at this point?
I know that's a perfect thing. That's our buddy Craig Mish, because he will literally ask them who's going to be your closer. So Eddie Buzz at him, we can get some answers here. Get him on the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball beat.
He has been, I think, twice.
Maybe more. Yeah, he's been on a bunch.
Just put me in the Anthony Bender camp, because if he's the guy, I'm riding with my boy. So I think that's who I would spec.
I don't see much in Foucher's arsenal to be like a closer, and Nardi is a good relief pitcher, but he's lefty, so you know you always kind of lean against the lefty getting the role. So I think Bender might be the guy. Yeah.
Bend it like Anthony, baby. That's right. And then Murph says, I think all prospect people kind of held their breath when they saw Roman Anthony was out of the lineup today, but it was a scheduled day off. I read a couple sources saying that he's basically as untouchable a prospect as you can get. So I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Now, Vinny, who's more untouchable, him or Jackson Holiday?
Ooh. That's hard because, okay, we're looking at Roman Anthony's in AA. He's batting like 247 with an 800 OPS. Jackson Holiday is a 19-year-old, soon to be 20 in AAA, who's had throw out his MLB debut. That was an absolute fluke. He probably should not have been called up. That was really rushing, really overwhelming for him. I'd say Roman Anthony's probably the one that's most likely to not be untouchable. You have Marcelo Meyer, who's finally producing for what they drafted of him. And then Kyle Teal, their catcher that they took last year right after the Cubs at somewhere in the teens. He has been absolutely phenomenal this year. And he might not also be limited to catcher. Like, he could also be serviceable in the outfield. So I would say the most untouchable is Roman Anthony.
Okay, fair enough there. Marty, Toronto Blue Jays were very active at the trade deadline, selling a lot of their pieces. Most notably, we talked about Nate Pearson before going to the Cubs. They also, mid-game, after Justin Turner singled, he got traded to the Seattle Mariners. Danny Jansen went over to the Boston Red Sox, and our guy, Reese McGuire, got kicked off the team, or DFA'd after that. Yimi Garcia also went to Seattle. Yusei Kikuchi, the most notable of all of them, going to Houston for 3 prospects. And as just like the Trevor Rogers people, very surprised at what they got back. I'm going to go to Vinny in a second talking about the prospects. What did you think about Kikuchi going to Houston?
Well, I would first want to bring up what the president of baseball with the Detroit Tigers said. So Scott Harris, he was asked about getting a, quote, less return for Jack Flaherty than Toronto did for Kikuchi. And this is what he said. I completely reject the premise. These players we got are really good. We had opportunities to make different deals with different teams, and this is the deal we chose for a reason. So he defends. He thinks that the Jack Flaherty deal was even better for the Tigers than Kikuchi's for the Blue Jays. But everything I saw. Okay, so what? Kikuchi. It's a heck of a haul. Toronto did the right thing. I mean, Joey Leperfido alone, I think it's worth it. What do you
also,
think?
Billy Wagner's son has been pretty good too. William Wagner, right? Is that his name? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, William Wagner, Will Wagner, Jake Bloss, who was in their rotation. Not necessarily wasn't doing great, but he was a major league arm already for them. Vinny, I know you kind of seem to disagree about the premise that the Orioles overpaid for Trevor Rogers. Did the Astros overpay for Yusei Kikuchi? Oh,
they momentously overpaid for him. I don't even know where to start. Like Leperfido, if he's available, I doubt he's available on your waiver wire, but Dynasty, go trade for him right now. Like, his power up in Canada is going to be absurd. Just everything about him. Like, they traded for guys that now that they could start plugging and playing with Vlad, if they choose to pay Vlad, or if they extend Vlad, or if they pay Bo. Jake Bloss was a draft pick last year that was so good this year that he fought for his MLB debut. It's a 3-pitch mix. He had a rough time in Houston, but Houston turns these guys out every single year. You know, Orengetty, Hunter Brown, like we've seen this before. He's cut from the same cloth. Will Wagner, for him being a throw-in is pretty crazy, because honestly, like, looking at some of the other deals they made, he could be like the main piece or the second best piece in one of the other deals. But man, Leperfido, I am so excited to see Leperfido out in Toronto. Same thing with Jonathan Clase, who they got for Yimi Garcia. like, man, they did some pretty good moves, and that's not even underplaying the Nate Pearson deal with the Cubs. They got Hendrik Piniago, who's struggled the last year and a half, but has shown that he could also be an everyday outfielder. So Toronto really, they really made some moves. And Charles McAdoo, the other guy they got today for the Pirates for Isaiah Kiner Falefa. Like, they made some pretty sneaky moves that I don't think, but they're going to get overshadowed by the Kikuchi deal.
Toronto needs to pay Vlad because he's leading MLB in WAR since the All-Star break, and since he cut his hair, he's hitting like 340 with like I forgot the amount of home runs he had. It's like absolutely insane, dude. He's showing that he is the real deal. If Toronto's paying anybody, you pay Vlad at this point because his skill set looks like it's going to age better than someone like Bo Bichette. So if Toronto decides not to pay him, I think you're pretty much telling your fans what your plans are in terms of contending at any point down the road.
And another big takeaway from their trade deadline, they didn't get any pieces that will replace Vlad or Bo in the next 2 years. They didn't even get anyone from the same positions played. So this could be telling to what their move is going forward, because even if you look through their system, they don't have a shortstop anywhere close. Like the highest caliber shortstop is either Leonardo Jimenez or Arjun Amala, who's in low A. So they may have given up their hand on what they're going to do here contract wise, but they have really they had a really good deadline.
Yeah, they definitely did. The Seattle Mariners were buyers. They got Randy Arozarena for very shocked at the prospect return they got for that. They also dealt Ryan Stanek away, and they dealt Ty France away, and they got Yimi Garcia now for the bullpen. Justin Turner also to play every day for them. Surprised at the return for Randy Arozarena, and I kind of try to figure out what they were exactly doing, because it kind of seems like outside of Arozarena, they kind of were just treading water at this point when they're fighting for the Astros for the division after having a 10-game lead and losing it here. What are your guys' thoughts on what the Seattle Mariners did at the deadline here? And can I say that I think Ty France is going to be the Will Myers 2.0, going to the Reds as a first baseman, and the hype that everybody's going to maybe say, oh, maybe Ty France is going to reignite his career in Cincinnati. And just like that name popped in my head when he went to Cincinnati. I was like, that's the perfect comparison. What do you guys thought?
What do I think? My first thought is you're pissing in my cereal with that last statement. Because I think Ty France might be good now that he's in Cincinnati.
You said about Will Myers too.
I didn't say that about Will Myers. I was not as bullish on Will Myers as you guys. I think
you were a Will Myers guy.
No, I was not. I think that Seattle had a Trader Jerry trade deadline. Stanek is a really good relief pitcher to trade away for a team that's in the playoffs, but he brought in Yimi Garcia as well. France is a piece that they've developed for a long time, who's been a major league piece, who's produced for them, and trade him away. But bringing in Arozarena, bringing in Justin Turner basically replaces France this year. Arozarena has been hitting well as of late, but I think the Phillies kind of did a similar thing, giving up some good pieces this trade deadline to kind of shuffle their roster around a little bit. And I like what Mariners did. They need some dynamism in their team, and Arozarena's a dynamic player, though I think he's shown some degradation in skills from his peak. But I think they had a good deadline, but they gave up a lot of pieces. I think Stanek's, he's a good relief pitcher.
All right, then let's move to so we can get to a couple more teams here before we run out of time for the night. Philadelphia Phillies, we talked about, brought in some pieces. They dealt out Sir Anthony Dominguez. Gregory Soto went to the Orioles as well with Dominguez. Brought in Carlos Estevez, Austin Hayes, who hit a 3-run homer today We said if he's now in an NL only league and he switched over, that he could be a nice speculative add there, or a 5 outfield league that he could be worth an add for that reason as well. Trying to think any other big trades that I missed that we can talk about here. I know there were a couple other smaller deals. Is there, in your guys' mind, I mean, Jorge Soler is going to keep playing just like he was with the Giants, but a better lineup for the Braves. But most likely he's picked up in most of the leagues you guys will probably playing in.
Well, David, actually, Art and I were talking about that. What's weird about the Braves picking up Jorge Soler is that I don't know where. I assume they're gonna have to play him in the outfield now. Now he hasn't played outfield all season. Marcell Ozuna is their DH. There's no way they're gonna chance him getting injured by putting him into the outfield. So I wouldn't expect Jorge Soler to have a full. Be playing full time, or if he is, a lot of defensive replacements, maybe losing a couple of bats here and there. So I think what he does gain by being in a better offense, I think he loses a little bit in playing time.
That's fair. I think that's a good point. Yeah, because Ozuna. When's the last time Ozuna played the outfield?
Maybe before he had a record.
Has he not played outfield at all this year? Has he been all DH every game? I'll have to double check that, because I wonder if there'll be like one of those things like Ozuna DHs 5 out of 7 games, and then Soler DHs like 2.
He hasn't played the field at all this year. He played 2 games in the outfield last season, Ozuna. So
Okay.
So 2022 he played 52 games in the outfield, and that's the last time he had any amount of robust outfield play.
Yeah. Okay. So guys are probably spot on with that then, in terms of how it's going to shake out for them in terms of him playing in the outfield. Are the Washington Nationals, and we talked about them already, are they the Oklahoma City Thunder of baseball right now?
No, the Oklahoma City Thunder, man, they could win the whole West. I don't see.
But a couple of years ago, they were starting to build up. You could see it where it was going.
I would say with Washington, Washington's got very lucky about 5, 6, 7 years ago with their talent, right? They've never been known to develop talent. They didn't have to develop Bryce Harper. Steven Strasburg was a once in a lifetime talent, and then ever since they've been kind of on their own, they've been absolutely terrible. So I see where Oklahoma is very good at developing teams. Or developing players. I don't know if they are.
If I were to comp them to a team, they're kind of like the Spurs right now. You have James Woods, who potentially could be your Wemby. You have multiple other pieces. You're coming off of, probably your best 4 or 5 years with your best 4 or 5 players, kind of like Tim Duncan, Ginobili, with your Bryce Harper and your Juan Soto. And this could be a really sneaky team next year if they attack free agency very precisely. Besides the Phillies, who's really going to give them run? Like the Mets, I'd have to see it before that happens. They usually crumble in the second half anyway. This could be, a team to keep your eye on next year.
That's all I'm saying. I think the Spurs comparison is good. Because James Wood, Dylan Cruz, CJ Abrams has been good. We talked about some good prospects they brought in from the trades that they did. Just throwing it out there that maybe that they're building something special there in Washington. Let's talk about the Mets, because that's one other team that Elsie made a good point to add in here. Got Jesse Winker. They got Paul Blackburn from the A's to help that rotation, especially now that Kodai Singh is out for the rest of the regular season. What are we doing with the Mets guys here?
Well, I think they did a nice job solidifying the bullpen. If Diaz is back to form, bringing in Maton and Stanek are 2 playoff tested bullpen arms, and I love Winker as a platoon bat for them on that team. Their offense has been solid, and then right now they're sitting in the driver's seat for a wild card spot. I think they've solidified their rosters, and Blackburn's a solid number 5 innings eater. I think he's going to be solid for them. Another if you're in an NL only pickup, not not Flaherty. He's behind Flaherty, but he's definitely a pickup. I think he's going to get starts for the Mets.
All right, I like it. Any other trades of note or any other players of note for fantasy that you guys feel are important to bring up before we close out the show tonight? I know we talked most of the big trades and fantasy impacts, and Vinny did an amazing job talking about a lot of the prospects changing hands here, the relevant ones at least. As we're talking, surprise, Lawrence Butler, solo homer.
One interesting move that I don't think is getting talked about enough yet is the Diamondbacks went out and got Josh Bell after Christian Walker just got diagnosed with that oblique. If there's one thing we have seen in the past from the Diamondbacks is that left-handed sluggers have pretty good run out in Arizona. You know, what does Bell have this year? Like 14 home runs or so? Like he's more than likely probably sitting on your waiver wire. I don't know. I might stash him right now and see how much he has to be taking over first base. They wouldn't have went out and got him if he's platooning. But even when Walker comes back, he could slot into the DH role, and they are playing for a playoff spot over there. The Padres did load up, but the Padres are always their worst enemy. So it's to wait and see the rest of that wild card in the division over there. But Bell might be an interesting ad.
And he homered in like 4 straight games, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's hot right now, so I don't think that's a bad call at all. Why do we think Brent Rooker wasn't moved here, as Murph asks here? I'm assuming that they didn't get an offer that is even worth considering, is the only reason I can think of.
Yeah. It was either they didn't like the offer or they're planning to bring him over to the AAA stadium next year and have him absolutely rake and then flip him for more than he's worth next year.
Former Twins great, Brent Rooker. Another Twin that got away.
Oh.
That Lawrence Butler has been playing well. They need some pitching. I know people are talking about how their offense is exciting, and I think I read a stat to you guys that they're the only team that have scored 16 runs 3 separate times in a game this year, and no other team has done it once. So their offense is wild.
So I wanted to talk about, you brought up the Twins. We talked about Marty's Tigers. The Twins really stood pat at this deadline.
Did nothing.
And the Guardians added and the Royals added. Thoughts, gentlemen? Did the Twins need to do something to keep?
But they're okay with complacency.
I mean, didn't they pick up Trevor Richards today?
Yeah,
That's
for
their
the
lone move.
bullpen. That's it.
Yeah.
But I think they're banking on that their health, like Carlos Correa being healthy, Royce Lewis being healthy, Jose Miranda, I know, just came back and then he got hurt again. I think they're just banking on their lineup staying healthy. And then Simeon Richardson just blew up, but he had been good before that. Joe Ryan has been good. Pablo Lopez. I think at the end of the day, they're just banking on their team being healthy going into the playoffs to giving them their best chance to win. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think that they have a good enough team to compete, though.
I'll say this, though, man. That top 3 of pitching, I mean, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober, that's not bad. And the AL, that can get you somewhere. And the offense itself isn't terrible. It's just there's no consistency from Willie Castro, the Byron Buxton, the Matt Wallner, the Royce Lewis, the
Manuel Margot is leading off right now.
Jose Miranda's constantly hurt. Max Kepler's often hurt. I mean, yeah, it's I feel like they know that there's so many gaps in their roster. I think it would just cost, so they would have to change everything to really fill it up. So they're like, we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're very aware that their kryptonite this season is going to be either injuries or lack of experience on the team. Like, you're running with half your team has never seen the postseason. And like within a year or two of their debut, like Brooks Lee is really good right now. He's 4 weeks, I think, in the majors now. So I think they've just really sat back and assessed, like, even if we do get into the playoffs, like, how far are we actually going? And is it worth giving up stuff that could help us next year? So I think they probably were the most realistic team with what they were doing at the deadline.
Yeah, and their bullpen's really good too. Griffin Jax is very underrated, and Johan Duran has struggled a little bit, but he's still a top end closer. They have some guys there that are
Brock
decent
Stewart's
too.
good.
Brock
Yep.
Stewart, yeah, like they have a lot of guys that can deliver in the bullpen too. So we'll see how it shakes out. As a Twins fan, you get very pessimistic come the postseason because they just don't perform. It's just what we do.
I know you guys didn't even win in Little Big League. They didn't even let you win in the movie.
The life of a Twin.
You controlled the script and you still didn't win.
Let me ask you guys a question. Who is the most irrelevant MLB franchise? Not in terms of like money spent, not in
Oakland
terms
Athletics.
of like if you were to ask a random person on the street to name you, who is like a team that they would never get? Like, is it the Twins? Is it the Oakland Athletics? Is it like the Cincinnati Reds? Like, who's like the most irrelevant team?
I mean, it's kind of Colorado Rockies got to be up there. Oakland
Yeah.
Athletics have to be up there.
I mean, even Miami, I would say, is up there.
Yeah. I think the A's because they're moving.
Yeah.
I think just that homelessness aspect of the A's. But the A's have a rich franchise history, like a century franchise history, more than so. It can't be the A's because even though their ownership,
Ricky Henderson, Eckersley,
yeah, and I mean all the way back to Connie Mack, the winningest manager of all time. It can't be the A's, even though their owner is the worst in baseball. So it's not the Twins though.
No.
Feels
I would
that
say
Oh, no way.
It has to be either the Rockies or the Marlins because they're both expansion teams who have seen the Rockies have seen no success pretty much, a failed World Series success. The Marlins won a World Series, like that's the only differential at this point. Like
two,
yeah, and Hall of Fame wise,
2003.
like, Marlins Hall of Famers. What are we looking at there? Like,
I don't know. The Rockies have
The list.
Rockies
Todd
have Todd Helton.
yeah, Todd Helton and
Larry Walker.
Larry Walker.
Yeah.
And
Did
besides
Vinny Castillo make it or no?
no.
Murph says
Andres Galarraga.
Not Galarraga either.
Murph says
Big
Brewers
Cat.
or Diamondbacks.
What? The Diamondbacks were just in
Yeah.
the World Series. No, that's crazy. No.
I wouldn't. The Brewers, man, the Brewers have surprisingly a pretty big following for them being
They
up in
do.
Milwaukee.
It's the Midwest. We're not doing anything
Yeah.
out here. That's all. What else we got?
What about
Brewers-
the Angels?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
With
that's a
Ohtani,
good one.
Trout, I don't know. But then you go back like Reggie Jackson, Nolan Ryan.
But people
Oh, yeah,
associate
and-
those guys with other teams. Like
Yeah,
they associate
true.
Reggie Jackson with the Yankees,
True.
Nolan Ryan with the Rangers. They don't associate with the Angels.
True.
They also, they won a
For,
World Series in 02. Was that 02?
Yeah, that was their only one.
Real quick with Mike Trout, possibly out for the season.
Yeah.
Another setback.
Oh
And
no.
supposedly it's a really big setback. So
Oh no.
I
Crazy.
hate to say it, but it might be the end on Mike Trout.
Where is his ADP next year? What round?
Late.
He
It's
was,
gotta be-
he was the round 5 pick this year.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7, and a 15 team.
I'm gonna
What's
say round 8.
It's got to be. It has to be double digits. It has to. 12th round,
Oh, I don't know. I feel like that's
10th round.
That's too far because depending on the setback, if he shows up to spring training and it's taking BP, he's not going to fall that far. Just
I
because
I
think-
say this because I'm burned by him. He was in, he was in my MySpace top 8, and I have him everywhere, including Gladiator drafts. He's killing me.
Over under his ADP being 9.5 in terms of the round.
Oh,
In a 15 team league.
15 team league.
Under.
yeah.
Yeah.
If there's an overall component, I'll take the under. But if it's just a 15 team league, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll take the under because someone's going to do it, but it's not going to be me. I promise you
Hopefully
guys.
Mike Trout is healthy next year.
Mike Trout is still 100% owned in the main event qualifiers that I'm in. So no one has had the courage to drop him
Not yet.
yet. No one has had it.
Next 24 hours could be a completely different story, depending on what trickles out here.
I did drop him, I think, like a month after he got initially hurt. But the second I did that, the next week, someone spent $27 on him.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Well, I think we discussed all our trade stuff tonight. So, gentlemen, any other trade discussion pieces you wanted to add?
Just watch out. The Tampa Bay Rays are very famous for walking away with very good stuff with a player to be named later, especially from the Mariners. And Aiden Smith, the outfielder they got, he should start popping up in top 100 lists. So if he's somehow still available, go pick him up in Dynasty.
All right, Vinny.
I absolutely love Jazz in New York. I think it's awesome. Shout out to him, dude. Backwards hat, stupid belt on, all those losers yelling at him. I love it, dude.
Yeah, finally,
do your thing, man.
Finally playing with fans. There's finally
yeah, man.
My father-in-law called him today Jazz-sational.
There we go.
He's a big Yankees
And
fan.
the 4 home runs in his first 3 games with the team. Jazz went 3 for 6 tonight with 2 homers, 5 RBIs, 2 runs, and the Yankees just won in 12 innings versus the Phillies after going down in the 11th and the 12th coming back.
Yeah, that's a great win for them, and they've been looking a lot better over the last week or so. So watch out, Yankees Orioles down the stretch. It's gonna be a doozy.
I just have a few names to look out for in your leagues now after the trade deadline. That we brought up Loperfido, we brought up a lot. I want to talk about. I really think Torque might be coming back.
I'm listening.
It's time to bring him back.
His AAA numbers were awful.
He's been terrible.
So what?
No, I hear you. We got rid of Mark Canha, so that does open up some first base room.
Yeah, I mean, what? Yeah, I think Torque. I think why would they not bring Torque back up?
Yeah.
And I like that. I think he's a possible power spec. Alejandro Kirk, after trading Danny Jansen, a lot of playing time up there in Toronto, and everyone, catchers. I think, unfortunately, that might be the end of Connor Wong being a serviceable catcher. Bringing Danny Jansen on to Boston. I love my catcher notes. What else do I want to say? Yeah, good luck, everyone.
All right. Well, thank all you guys for bringing such great stuff for the pod tonight. Vinny, again, prospect guru. Thank you again for hopping on with the group tonight here. Make sure you're following Vinny at Down on the Farm 8 on Twitter. Make sure you include that 8 because there's multiple Down on the Farm on Twitter for some reason. I thought you were unique with that name.
Nope. I found out the hard way also when people are like, oh, you're 12. No, I'm 8. Sorry.
Make sure you're following Art at ArtTPF, Marty at Marty_Tallman, and follow me at DMendy02. We'll be back next week for a normal episode of Week 19 preview, sleepers, 2-star pitchers, all that good stuff. Until then, we'll talk to you guys next week. We're going to haul these buns and do something. I don't know. We'll look like a bread truck. We're going to break a bread truck and haul these buns. Talk to you guys next week.